Michael Montero, Steve Kim, just outside the Forum in Inglewood, California, just moments after Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez victory over Carlos Caudras. Steve, what did you think about the decision in this fight?
I thought it was fair. I thought the 117-111, which is 9-3 for Chocolatito, was a little bit exorbitant, if you want to use that word. But I think when it was all said and done, I think Chocolatito was on his front foot. I thought even though he's a smaller man, I thought he landed the majority of the hard punches coming forward. I thought they got it right. I think that when it was all said and done, you ask yourself, who would you rather be? Even though, I got to tell you, I've never seen Chocolatito so banged up. But again, he's fighting a bigger guy. But I think they got the decision correct.
It's interesting because I noticed the same thing you did. We were both sitting ringside. You saw Roman's face was swollen up. I've never seen him like that. Cuadras looked pretty good. Was it just that he was the bigger guy? Was it the type of shots Cuadras was landing? Because he was throwing these looping shots. Maybe he was grazing him with the side of the glove. What do you think caused that swelling?
You know, I really don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I'll say this. He is moving up. You have to understand, he made history tonight being the first Nicaraguan fighter to win 4 world titles, surpassing the great Alexis Arguello. But, you know, from 105 to 115, at that weight class, if you look at the percentage of body weight, that's a lot of girth.
Right.
So with that being said, you know there's going to be a little bit more damage. But I'll say this. I thought for most of the night, Roman was the guy on his front foot in a fight that wasn't a boxing match. He was landing the harder, more telling shots. But, you know, people are always going to say, look at what his face looked like. But, Mike, we don't know the guy's skin texture. We don't know the complexion. We don't know how they're going to react to DNA. You don't judge a fight like that. I really do think if you gave every benefit of the doubt to Cuadras, you could have had it a draw. But if you really judge the fight fairly, I do think they got it right. I think Chocolatito won a clear and close decision.
I agree with you. I scored a 116, 112 myself. I could see as close as 115, 113. Thought the 117, 111 was a little wide. How surprised were you with the Nicaraguan fans? There was a lot of, it was louder. The chants for Nicaragua were louder than Mexico, the chants.
I never thought I'd see a day where a Nicaraguan would actually get more fan support in a world title fight at 115 at the Forum.
In Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. You know, let me just say this. I actually have had the honor of actually being at every Chocolatito fight in LA. Now, this goes back to 2012. It's not the Estrada fight at the Sports Arena on a very wet, rainy November night, 2012. It was actually in April of that year. He fought at the Fairplex in Pomona on an Unamas show. Top Rank actually promoted that fight. I thought he fought Raul Hilares, if I get the name correctly. And I'll never forget, on that week, Mike, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, Top Rank put on a press conference. The local promoter, his name is Ray Alcorta, at a local Nicaraguan restaurant near Koreatown. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is a great free dinner. I really didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I thought maybe it was something. I thought at the best they could be a co-feature to a Gennady Golovkin, but to actually see him draw over 6,700 in LA on a night where there's football going on,
right?
I think it's a milestone achievement for K2 Promotions. I think this is a very big step for Roman Gonzalez.
A Nicaraguan restaurant in Koreatown. That is Los Angeles in a nutshell. That's LA in a nutshell. Let's talk real quickly about the co-feature. Yoshihiro Kamegai gets, I think, the signature win of his career with the victory over Jesus Soto Karass, who I think kind of phoned it in tonight. It looked like a retirement-type performance. What do you think about that fight?
You know, you say phoned it in. I say he had no change left anymore. I just really thought, as you looked at that fight from the very beginning, Kamegai had more left. I got the sense, even though the last fight I thought was a draw, as I look back, and again, hindsight's 2020, you say to yourself, who has more left in the tank? Who has a little bit more left to give? From the very beginning of this fight, Michael, I thought Kamegai, who's not a speed demon, was a little bit quicker off the trigger. Didn't you feel that way? He was beating him to the punch. That's what I thought.
A little fresher.
You're right, a little bit fresher than the body shots got to him. And, you know, listen, I think Jesus Soto Karass actually, for what he has in terms of natural ability, he's had a good career. He's like a Volkswagen that actually made it to the Indy 500. Because let's face it, 7 years ago, he was a sparring partner for Antonio Margarita. To actually get on HBO and to be on other stages, I think he's done well for himself. I think what Kamegai won tonight was another opportunity to make a little bit more money. And I think for Soto Karass, I do think it is the end.
Yeah, Soto Karass has that signature win over Andre Berto a couple years back. And for Yoshihiro Kamegai, he's just a hard scrabble guy. This is finally that win for him that maybe can get him to that big fight. Let's talk super, super quickly, because they're about to kick us out of here, for about Golovkin and Brook. Now, a lot of people are saying Golovkin looked bad in this fight. We watched it together. What do you think about what Golovkin did tonight, his performance, and what it means for his future?
I think in the first 45 seconds, he figured out really quickly that he was going to be simply too strong. And I think that was a blessing and a curse. I think he realized at one point, I don't think Kell Brook, as skilled as he is, and I felt for a while, he is the best fighter at 47. As unproven as that might have been. I think the problem is, though, he became that guy in baseball, to use this analogy, tried to hit a home run all the time. And that's the wrong way to go. I thought technically, because he was looking for that one-punch highlight reel knockout, I thought fundamentally he broke down a little bit. Now, is he hittable? With that style, he's going to be hittable. I don't think he was ever in danger of really losing the fight. But I do think from a technical aspect, Mike, I don't know what you think about it, I think that Abel needed to pull him back and get him back to the very basic, fundamental jab. And even though he won, I think there's such a high standard that is set from guys like me, you, and everyone else. I think people will look at this and say, hey, maybe he's vulnerable. Maybe he's not the guy we think he is. But you know what, though? This is a funny thing about this business. Maybe if he wants to get the fights he wants to, maybe that's a good thing.
That's what I think. I think there was two different fights tonight. When he worked behind that jab, he controlled the distance. He controlled the fight. From the first round on, he targeted that right eye of Brook, which the eye socket was broken. When he got lazy and just threw lead left hooks, he got tagged, right?
And by the way, I thought the left hooks were interesting. He didn't throw as many left hooks to the body as I thought. I think when you have a guy that's what's funny? I talked to Stephen Breadman Edwards, a very good trainer, Julian Williams. He really thought coming into this fight, this is going to be a very tough fight, because he said when a middleweight fights a welterweight that's very athletic, the quickness, the cadence, and the rhythm is going to be quick. I do think that Gennady Golovkin had problems with the overall quickness and his ability to pull the trigger. The fact that Kell Brook had a lot of athleticism, so at times he missed punches. I thought there comes a point in time when you face elusive, athletic fighters, you know where you don't miss? Below the chest. Hit arms, elbows. I thought he missed a lot of left hooks over the top, and once he got back to the jab. But I'll say this, though. This reminded me of the Willie Monroe fight in one way, Mike. And we were here at this fight, about last year, right? Yeah, 14, 15 months ago. That even when guys win rounds against Golovkin, if they win rounds or if they're competitive, I think we've seen it. You have to work so hard for those, 180 seconds? You don't have the wherewithal to really go another 9, 10 rounds to win those rounds. I thought Kell Brook may have won a round or two, but there's a physical toll. Like if you ever see a marathon runner, Mike, how many of these guys actually sprint? You can't sprint to a marathon. And to win rounds against Golovkin, you have to sprint. You might win that round, but there's a price to pay.
Well, we've both been up at Big Bear, and we've seen Golovkin work out. He doesn't lift weights. He doesn't waste a lot of time in the gym doing stupid exercises. Everything he does is boxing related. Yeah. I thought Brook won the second round. I thought in the first round it was interesting. Golovkin landed a left hook downstairs and came up top with it and buzzed Brook, and then he abandoned the jab. Yeah. So I just think he got a little too happy with his power, right?
I think this is one of the fights where Gennady Golovkin needed Abel to pull him back. Listen, do I think he's going to fight a bigger, more natural welterweight differently? I do. One thing about Gennady Golovkin, I don't think people understand one thing. He has a mean streak. He is not Borat in boxing gloves.
He's a different guy off camera, people. A much different guy.
And I think he was irritated throughout the week. I don't think he was sick. I don't think he was ill. I think certain things got to him, such as the London traffic, some of the pundits on the UK, Sky Sports. I think he wanted to prove a point. I'll say this. I think Dominic Ingle deserves a lot of credit. One of my big pet peeves about this sport is what I call the courageous corner. I think that fight, if they really cared about their fighter, they had to stop it at that point, because that thing was going downhill one direction at that point. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a bloodthirsty ghoul just like the rest of you guys, but I don't necessarily need to see a guy's career ended. I saw that against Antoine Douglas, against Vontel Kurtzaize. Yeah. I thought that corner was incredibly brave and courageous. I thought they ended a career. I thought Dominic Ingle, when it's all said and done, if you look at this fight and you don't have the emotions involved, Mike, I thought he did the right thing.
I do too. And at first, for the record, I didn't agree with that. At first, I was like, what is this going on? I was like, what the hell is this stoppage? But Steve showed me the light there.
Well, that's what
and
I do.
a few fans here talked to, that's
That's
what
what
this
I
guy
do.
does. A few fans here talked about the Antonio Margarito fight with Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
And that fight should have been stopped at some point. He's never been the same since. Here you go with Brook. The fight gets stopped. Maybe he lives to fight another day. And I tell you something, I think he can own the 154-pound division after this.
Owen is interesting. How would he match up against the Charlo brothers, and specifically...
He beats the Charlo brothers.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Boo Boo Andrade, Julian Williams. But let me just say
Andrade
this.
is the class of that division, in my opinion.
I think Kell Brook, if he had a couple more fights to acclimate himself between 54 and 60, and if he wins a few more fights, Golovkin goes on his path, and if they said, Steve, in a year or two, how about a rematch? I would not be opposed. And I have to tell you, that's a stark contrast to when this fight was announced, I believe, in, mid-June. We were all aghast at it. I think Kell Brook proved one thing, that at above 47, somewhere along the way at 160 or below, he's formidable. I've said for a while I thought he was the best welterweight in the world, even though he didn't get a chance to prove it. I want to see more of him. I really do, because I agree with you. I don't know if he owns 54. I want to see him there at 54, though.
Absolutely. I thought he accounted very, very well for himself, and I think that he's going to go on to do bigger things.
And by the way, his corner allowed him to do that. I still remember, one of the funniest lines I've ever heard was from Sonny Liston. He fought the Bayonne bleeder, Chuck Wepner. And Chuck Wepner got cut up. They kept sending him out.
He cut in every fight.
But he got cut to a point where he had like 84 stitches. And I'll never forget, I wasn't there, but it's one of the famous stories. They said to Sonny Liston, they said, Sonny, is Chuck Wepner the bravest, toughest guy you ever fought? And Chuck Wepner was bleeding, and Sonny Liston said to the reporter, just deadpan, no, his corner was.
Yeah.
So again, the corner has to be there to protect the fighter. I thought with Kell Brook that he had a very good stretch between rounds 2, 3, and 4. Even though he didn't win every round, I don't know if you believe in moral victories, but by the 5th round, Mike, we knew where this fight was going. It was going in one direction.
It was going to be over in the 6th round. I've said all along, this was not Canelo Khan. It wasn't in the ring. And we always talk about how the UFC versus boxing, in the UFC, you could tap out, and the fans there don't give a shit. And here, I think in boxing, we need to see more of that. Real quick, does Golovkin-Jacobs happen November 26th?
Mike, you were a witness. My phone was blowing up. I mean, it was funny.
Right after the fight.
It was after the fight. Andre Rozier, great friend of mine. Andre, I love you, and God bless you. He called me literally within, I say a minute?
Not even a minute.
Not a minute. He called, and he said, Steve, and what did I say? I said, you want the fight now? And they said, yes, now again.
No, you said, is this on the record or not?
Yeah, well, I said that a couple times. The on-the-record stuff is really good. I can't bring it out. But he said they want the fight next. And now you also know this. You were there. And again, don't take this the wrong way, but Gilberto Mendoza slid into my DMs. Okay?
Yeah.
And he said, we are beginning the 120-day period where we're going to mandate this fight. Now, let me explain real fast. Gennady Golovkin is a WBA quote-unquote super champion. Jacobs is the quote-unquote regular champion, which in essence means he's the mandatory. They taken their turns. The IBF mandatory was fulfilled with Dominic Wade. Kell Brook was kind of like this voluntary defense in between this vacuum of time. So now Gilberto Mendoza has said that we will begin the 30-day negotiating period now. Now, that's not a promise that the fight's going to happen or anything like that, but I believe at least the wheels are in motion, and I believe once that this edict has been stated, Mike, in my opinion, I don't know what you think, don't you think now the pressure's on from both fights? Make a deal?
I think so. I think it's a no-brainer in New York at Barclays or at the MSG. If it happens in December, I think it's going to go pay-per-view. That's my only thing. And I don't know if HBO wants to do another one of those. So I think it might get pushed to early next year. Either way, I welcome that. I think Jacobs is the number 2 middleweight right behind Golovkin.
Yeah.
Big athletic guy. But here's the thing. People who saw this fight today with Brook and think that Triple G is going to get touched up by Jacobs, I think he's going to fight Jacobs just like he fought Lemieux.
Yeah, jab. Let me just say one thing. The most underrated thing about Gennady Golovkin, boxing IQ.
Yep.
If you think he's going to go on a kamikaze
350
mission,
amateur fights, guys.
lost 5 of them.
He's not stupid. He knows how to fight.
And the one thing about Danny Jacobs, as vulnerable as he might be in certain respects, 'cause I still have the Dmitry Pirog fight in my mind. I still remember when that fight was made. I thought it was a little bit too soon. But I do think that the more threatening an opponent is, the safer Gennady Golovkin is. And Gennady Golovkin I've always compared to Julio Cesar Chavez, JC Superstar. And if you go back to when he was really in his prime and a little bit after, he would lose a round or two because he understood he had a very, very good chin. Punch resistance is very key to that style and being successful with it. Now, with Danny Jacobs, do I think that he would be, as what I would describe today as being reckless and loose with this technique? I don't. But with that said, I thought it was completely unfair that when Danny Jacobs said on Spike yesterday that I want Gennady Golovkin, people ripped him. And my point is, wait a minute, what were you going to say if he said he didn't want him? Let's see how this process plays out. I think we all understand there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this business that has nothing to do with the actual fighters. Let's see how this plays out, and let's cross our fingers.
For my money, I think Golovkin-Jacobs is a better fight than Golovkin-Canelo. I think it's more competitive. But let me know what you guys think. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe. Michael Montero, Steve Kim, here outside of the forum.